yesterday we had Mr. Kuyate here from the SLTU, and we also had Dr. Tonya Musa from the University of Sierra Leone. And this massive failure is being, they are now saying that it is because of the high rate of examination malpractices, because some of these kids, the exams, they did not pass genuinely, and at the end of the day they have very good grades. You had Mr. Kuyate saying even the pupils who are studying the humanities got 1 in mathematics, and that actually urged them to go to the University of Sierra Leone and commerce, to be precise. And you know, when you go there, it's not going to be child's play. So maybe this is a way of curtailing this whole issue of examination malpractice. Don't you think so?
So the issue of examination malpractice, I mean, the university has several issues with regards examination malpractice, right? They are part of it. They should not be left out. They should not only blame the basic education ministry, because they have those candidates that write private to us. At university level, there are also malpractices. But what I want to say, Sierra Leone is a country where a lecturer takes joy to fail students. When a person do not tell them when they fail you. These are the lecturers we have in this country, and these are the lecturers who not get rid of in this country. No, let me say this again. Most of Sierra Leone lecturers, Tonya Musa, if you are listening well, I'm saying this. You DVC, you chancellor, if you're listening me well. Lecturers, majority of them in Sierra Leone, have pleasure in failing students. Whether they have personal issues, they will fail you. You have issues, they don't like you, you are in the club, they will fail you.
What will you say about
so I am saying, if you want to contain examination malpractice, have those lecturers who lecture you without premeditated mind.
Okay, so what about
gives
those
you the grade you deserve? Who you can evaluate as students?
Alfonso, so it's good that you are talking to the lecturers, but what about those pupils who take the worst exams, even when they are not in the sciences, they are in the humanities? For example, I'm an art student, and then when my result is out, I got A1 in mathematics. Is that also the responsibility of the universities? Because it is what the schools are producing that the universities are taking. So if you cannot get them processed well in the schools, then when they go to the university, you always have issues with them.
So don't say if you are in the humanity, you cannot get a 1 in mathematics. That's that. No, I'm coming.
Okay, some will even tell you I did not attempt. What about those who tell you I did not attempt that paper, but I got A1?
That's a different case. That's a different case.
Okay, Alfonso, go ahead.
Good. Somebody in humanity can have a 1 in mathematics if that person understands mathematics. There is no rule that says if you are in the arts, you cannot have a 1 in mathematics.
It's good you are putting a condition there that if, because most of us in the human, you and I know that
I don't know that. What I know,
we don't have
you are required to have your 5 subjects to darken the university. So I am saying, whether you are in the humanity or not, nothing precludes you if you study well to having 1 in mathematics.
Sure.
But in a case where you did not write the exam and you are giving grades, it's a different thing.
So what do you have to say about those situations?
So what you are saying, you are now telling those art students don't study mathematics.
So, Alfonso,
it's not really.
What about those who did not take some of these, did not go for some of these papers?
So you are right.
They have grades and they got A1, B2 in these subjects.
That's a mistake on the part of WAEC, and and on this program, on several cases, have dealt with those issues to say it is wrong. How can you have someone not writing an examination and give that person that tells you even the examination system needs to be probed? This is why, according to Section 9 of the Basic Education Act, they are now putting in place the Education Board.
So don't you think that's why WAEC is taking these people from one center to another, so that they could contain some of these things?
They've not told me that. But what I've listened to some of those writing the examination is based on the discomfort moving from one place. And let me just say this, some of them writing this examination, they are workers, so they find center very close to their office where they can ask for a 1 or 2 hour just to go write the exam and come back to your office. So if you are in Shaka Stevie Street, your office is located at Shaka Stevie Street, and they send you to Waterloo, You lost a whole day and a whole week or 2 weeks writing an examination.
All right, thank you very much, Alfonso Manley, and thanks for being part of the program. Quickly, Bami, even as we go. So when will the exam start?
Is it November exams? The timetable will come up very soon.
All right.
But before I go, also I want to let viewers understand. We want to make sure we manage this for next exams. Now the portal for CAS 1 Continuous Assessment Year 1 is opened and will close on the 30th of September. The very reason we had a lot of candidates that didn't write this exam, the May exams, is because their continuous assessments were not uploaded for CAS 1. And now the CAS 1 is again open till September 30. We are asking on all school heads, all parents, all candidates to ensure that their CAS 1 is entered and is uploaded. Otherwise, you may not be writing the exams in 2 years' time.
Are parents right to complain to the ministry if the school fails to do so?
That is their responsibility.
All right,
that's
thank
the role
you
of
very
parents.
much. He is Augustine Bami Anthony, and he is the head of media at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone. We now go to another issue, Emmanuel.
Yes, well, before we go to another issue, let's take a short break because we will come back to you again with more interesting stories.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold natural cocoa powder, Sunny Gold brown sugar, meat fufu flour, shito, pisa, and moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.
Welcome back. The program you are watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Well, now we continue the program with other interesting issues here. September is National Sickle Cell Awareness Month. Sickle cell disease is one of the most common chronic inherited genetic disorders affecting especially African and Asian countries worldwide. This is part of an annual effort to increase awareness about sickle cell disease and sickle cell traits during the month of September. In Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone Sickle Cell Society is specialized in creating awareness through social mobilization activities, school sensitizations, genetic counseling, maintenance and crisis management of persons with sickle cell disorder in Freetown, among others. Mrs. Emilia Iva Gaba is the program coordinator of the Sierra Leone Sickle Cell Society. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Sierra Leone.
Good morning.
And also we have Johnny Walker, a survivor, a sickle cell survivor. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning. How are you?
Okay, so first, Mrs. Gaba, let's talk about the current status of sickle cell in Sierra Leone, because we cannot just talk about raising awareness without knowing current status. Let's talk about the status.
Maybe what it is.
Okay. Sickle cell disease is it's one of the common chronic inheritable genetic disorders affecting African and Asian countries. It causes red blood cell disorders leading to sickle cell anemia that results in ill health and death among our patients. It is one of the most common non-communicable disease and also a public health problem in Sierra Leone, in the whole of Africa, and especially in Sierra Leone. It presents severe burden on the affected people, and the disease itself affects the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. The red blood cells are normally round, and they are responsible to take oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body. We cannot survive without oxygen. So this is very important. But something happens and there is a change in the DNA composition of the red blood cells. So it affects the hemoglobin. And the red blood cells, which is normally round, now changes its shape and it becomes crescent, or it becomes like a half moon when the moon appears within 1 week, like the way you see it on the sky. Or the first person who saw it in America was a Jamaican coming from a farming background. He said, what I'm seeing, these cells that I'm seeing, they look like sickle. Sickle are called knives that we use to harvest. Even we have them in our own communities here in Sierra Leone. So this is what the man said, that it looks like sickle. And so that is how it's even got its name. Now this sickle shape has a tendency to stick to each other. Instead of flowing like the normal red blood cells, which is round and normally changes its shape to pass through small blood vessels, when it gets to small blood vessels, it sticks to each other and it blocks, so there is a blockage in the veins. So blood supply is not going on as normal. And so where it blocks the veins, there is pain above, there is pain at the sides, and there is pain below because blood is not flowing through. And this is what causes the problem.
So Madam Gaba, this is 2024, and you guys have been, raising awareness on sickle cell. Let's talk about the data itself. Do we have an increase in the number of people that are living in sickle cell, or are we experiencing a decrease in the number of people currently living with sickle cell in the country?
We have an increase, and that is why it is very important as we are celebrating, we are asking, or we are commemorating this September as a sickle cell awareness month. We are advocating for us to review the prevalence rate of Sierra Leone, because the prevalence rate of Sierra Leone as of like 30 years back, which was done by Uri and others, Dr. Robin Coker and others at Ramsey Medical Laboratories, the study was done. It said we have 22% of the population with sickle cell trait. That means if you take 100 people of Sierra Leone, 22 of them will have sickle cell trait. And sickle cell trait is very important because these are the people who give birth to sickle cell disease. Now when they say you have sickle cell trait, it means that you have normal red blood cells and you have the abnormal red blood cells. When you have sickle cell anemia, it means that all your cells are abnormal. So this is what is happening, and in Sierra Leone at the moment, yes, we have data. With working in a sickle cell society with Ramsey Medical Laboratory, we have been able to, over the years, look at what those that we have registered, and we have like 4,630 people that have come to our center as of now from the time we started this our society. Among this, we now have 3,392 who are sickle cell patients, HBSS. Now we have 150 who are HBSC.
So and then, what is the difference between HBSS and that of HBSC?
HBSS is the sickle cell anemia itself, and then HBSC there is a milder form. HBSC in fact is not common in Sierra Leone. It is seen in Upper Ghana, in Burkina Faso, but we are seeing this in people who are coming from Guinea, more the Fula people, and we are also seeing it in the Creole people. But it is not as severe as HBSS, only that they do have eye problems, and also when they are pregnant or doing deliveries, they always have problems when they are pregnant. But as for the SS, they are the ones who have got severe signs and symptoms and who are almost always sick.
So let me come over to this young gentleman. I'll come to you, Madam Gaba. Let me come over to the young gentleman who is a sickle cell survivor. Currently, are you living in sickle cell?
Exactly.
So how has it been for you as a young man growing up living with this type of disease?
It has actually been in two folds. At the early stage of my life, it was somehow difficult because at that time there was little or no understanding about my condition, and the pre-information given were some of frightening and negative. So I took it upon myself to know more about the condition that I'm living with. Because one thing about sickle cell is it's an inherited condition. You don't get it along the way. You don't get it through infection or so. It is something that you are born with, and that can only happen if both parents are carrier of the disease. If two parents meet that are carrier of AS, what they will give birth to is an SS. So the SS is the full-born sickle cell warrior, which is the hemoglobin SS. And life at those stage was kind of difficult because you have to miss school. Like, you would just get ill on some unsubstantial way. And so after some times, I came in contact with the Sierra Leone Sickle Cell Society. That was in 2014. I started to know more about my disease, and as for now, I can say it's fun and it's motivating, because my condition has actually motivated me personally to do stuff which I never imagined that I would be doing today, because I have to fight for myself to live. At first, I was having a single reason to live, because my sister passed off with sickle cell disease. She was a qualified year student at Freetown College. She passed off at age 23. So that fighting was living with me on a daily basis. And I was thinking, like, is this gonna be the same for me? Because there is this myth that sickle cell patients or sickle cell warriors don't normally go above the age of 20, and the maximum you can live is 23 years. So clocking towards that age, it was kind of difficult for me. I was living on a daily fear, and I took it upon myself that I have to live and be a testimony for my sister, because she was somebody that I loved so much. And at age 23, when my sister passed, at that same age of mine, I almost knocked down again with the same disease, which I was almost on the way of death. I have to fight. The sooner I got to be recovered from that illness, I said, as long as I pass this stage, then sickle cell will not gonna kill me. Or let me just leave the fear behind my back and face the reality that let me be a testimony to others who do not have that kind of self-motivated mind that they can do it. They can live normally with sickle cell disease. So as at now, I'm just that kind of a normal person. And the one thing that I took upon myself is I'm not gonna be like the situation I'm in. If you see me physically, if we met on the street, you can notice that I'm a sickle cell.
Okay, so Madam Gaba, let me come back to you. Looking at the way sickle cell are dealt with people over the years in Sierra Leone, you understand? And now we have the Sickle Cell Society. You've been around for some time now. Let us know some of the local efforts that you've made in trying to contain this type of disease. What are the research that you've embarked on? What are some of the local medication or things that you brought up to lessen it on people? You know, people that you let me say you observe that they do have this trait. What you've done to ensure that they do not pass it on to their children of the sort?
Thank you very much. What we have been able to do, one of the issues that we have really seen as being successful is the genetic counseling that we are doing at our center. I've told you that we have over 4,000 people that have come through us, and among these people, all of them go for blood tests to Ramsey. So when they come back with the result, we have an opportunity to sit with them and to have genetic counseling. Actually is for them to understand what actually is happening to them, what has led them to come or to get a sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease, as I said, is an inherited condition. When they say you have sickle cell disease, you have HBSS, it means that your mother and your father both have got sickle cell trait. That is, they have sickle cell in their system. They may not be sick, they may not, but they have the tendency to give birth to children who will have sickle cell disease. And that has been very successful, because one of our major problems, the social problem, is dealing with the men. Sometimes the men will say, just look at me, as healthy as am I, you think that sick child is my child? Or they will say to the woman, every day you are asking for money to take this child to the clinic. I'm not even responsible. Go and ask your people to help them. These are one of the problems that we have been having. Okay. And with time, we now see men bringing their children. Most men coming after that genetic counseling, you see them, they will be the ones that will come with the children. Or they will come and say, hey, don't go to school, so I want for taking medicine for him. we have really been able to
Madam
get.
Gaba, quickly before we go to another issue,
Yeah.
do you normally do pre-wedding counseling for people who go to, because it's very important to get people to know their blood group,
Their genotype.
before going into marriage, because it's very important for people to know, so that once they are in marriage, they will not produce kids with those traits.
We are trying, like you said, the activities that we are doing. We are also in schools, because it's only in schools that we are going to get to the youths. And the youths are very good media for us to send information to the homes. So we are in the schools also, and we do sensitization also in the schools. Because, like I said, these people coming to us, we do genetic counseling for them. We do it, we make newspaper publications, we go on the radio, on TV, and we have discussions on pre-test, for people to do tests to know their genotype before they get married. Okay. Even now, we are really stressing on that. But love is very strong. So this issue is really strong. We have seen, even among our patients, we tell them, when you want to get married, please, if you have a girlfriend, please bring that one. Sometimes when the person is pregnant, that's the time they will come and say, this is my partner. And when you do the test, it's AS. For him, luckily, we had our Johnny Walker brought somebody, and that person was AA. So that was good for us. It's a good story. But most of them, love is so strong. They will not come. But really, that's a very important issue. Advising all Sierra Leoneans to know their genotype
before getting.
Like me, if I tell you that I have a sickle cell AS, maybe you will not believe, because I'm getting older now, and when they proved it in school days, it's the same up to now. So it is important for us to know our genotype, because that will help us to remove sickle cell from our families.
Okay.
That's why we're helping us to look for somebody who is AA.
Thank you very much.
So that you will remove it small from your families.
Thank you very much, Madam Gaba. Continue to stay with us. Quickly, we'll be coming back to talk about the celebration, even as you observe the month of September. We continue with the program, and now the Sierra Leone Reporters Union has celebrated its 20th anniversary, marking 2 decades of advocating for the welfare of and rights of journalists across the country. Founded on the 17th September 2004 by some prominent media professionals, the union has worked tirelessly to promote the interest of reporters despite challenges over the years. To discuss further on the anniversary, we have been joined in the studios by our colleague, and she's also the Vice President of the Sierra Leone Reporters Union, Zainab Sunkai Kuruma. Good morning, Sunkai. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Francis.
Congratulations on celebrating the 20th anniversary of SLI.
Thank you.
So what is it to celebrate?
The thing, first of all, this celebration is reporters' dedication to the newsroom. We all know how they have worked tirelessly throughout the years, working to get the news going out there. So we are celebrating the delegation to the newsroom. We are celebrating them for working tirelessly and without pay, without any protective gears, and without salaries, but yet still they're out there informing people about the truth, about what's going around. So we are celebrating the delegation, even though these 20 years of the union have been a struggle for us to advocate on their welfare. So the main issue we are going to advocate for them is their welfare.
So you are just coming in as a new executive, taking over a very dormant executive. So what are some of the plans to make sure this union become an envious one again?
So in our manifesto, the first thing we did was we said that it's rebranding the union, because the union have been dormant for a very long time. So it will amaze you to know that this is the first time as a union we are celebrating this 20th anniversary. It has never been in the case wherein people will put press release that the 17th of September is the day that they found the SLRU. But this is the first time we are celebrating this, and we are coming hard. We want to let people know that reporters are human. We go out there, we get the news. But to know that we are the least paid, we are not acknowledged, and people they don't recognize us in society. So this year we are determined that we are going to celebrate the delegation of reporters.
So this is just the day was yesterday, and do you have activities lined up for this celebration?
Of course. Yes, we have a lot of activities. So we are planning to do a 1 week celebration, but we thought it that this is the first time we are celebrating it. So we are going to cut it to 3 activities. So we do a sponsor walk, when we have to buy t-shirts. As a reporter, we are going to have t-shirts, cups, bags. This is to show that reporters are very hardworking, and we are going to have a sponsor walk where we generate money for reporters who have been working tirelessly, for us to have awards or to recognize them. Secondly, we are going to have a football gala. This is a way to gather them all, because if you check our statistics, we don't know the amount of reporters across Sierra Leone. That is very...
So don't you think that should be one of your...
Of course, that is one of our... That's why we have dish out forms for reporters. So
I've not received mine, and I voted.
Well, I know
in the last elections. I've not received mine.
You are going to receive yours. So for those that are in the upper country, we are going to send them a soft copy, wherein they will fill it online and send their pictures, their
Maybe
passport
that could
picture.
have been the trend all over, because people really don't have time to sit and read these hard copies. If you send it for soft copy, I'll just sit in my comfort zone and do what is required of me.
Yes, so that's what the first thing we are doing now is giving out the form, which we have done, and then we are going for the AGM.
You've not completed because I've not received mine.
You are going to receive because you are going for the AGM. And secondly, back to the question, the celebration will be in November. And November we have other activities. We have WIMSA celebrating their own,
and Swasa.
and Swasa. So we are going to end the November with the celebration. So we are giving reporters the time to get their t-shirt, cap, and for them to know that these are our reporters.
The reporters over the years, as you rightly said, have been faced with numerous challenges, ranging from some of them are not paid in their workplaces. Some of them we just move from one place to another. Some will go to people's event, they will get the news, they will collect whatever they collect, and they will never publish. Are you also talking to some of your members to make sure they behave decently so that they will be treated decently?
So the celebration, the symposium, is for that purpose. We are getting reporters to come in when we invite other people, but even though we are celebrating you, we are also teaching you, telling you responsibility as a reporter. You can't go to somebody's event, you report, you go there, they give you money, and then you don't do the person's story.
Some of them are not even reporters, they are only going there because they think that's the easiest job to get. Because I'll just take my pen and paper and go to any event, and I'll sit there and write any media name, because the media, I would say, is polarized. People will just come in and say, it's not like the Sierra Leone Bar Association. If you are not a lawyer, you are not a member. You have to be a lawyer. But for for reporters, anyone could just wake up in the morning. And the dangerous thing is, whenever they are involved in issues, you are always there to talk on their behalf. So this is one of the issues that we are having with your members.
In handling that issue, so that's why we have dished out the form. We are not asking you to give back our form. We are asking you to come with the form with your passport pictures. So these passport pictures, we are going to create a ID card. We meet all these MDAs, agency, ministries. We tell them that our union is going to have an ID card. So we are going to have this ID card, and then for you to come to this program, you should show this ID card, that this is my ID card, I'm part of the Sierra Leone Reporter Union. We are also advising media houses to also give ID cards to them, and then for the ministry and agency, when you come, show me your ID card. Did I invite you? No. If you are not invited, but some of them encourage them.
Capacity to be able to reach all these institutions.
We are trying.
Okay.
It's not easy, but we are trying.
So, Sukari, let's talk about your relationship with SLAJ and that of the IMC, because what Frances is mentioning is all boils down to professionalism in reporters dispensing their duties. What is your relationship with these institutions?
The relationship is very strong. So when we came in as an executive, the first thing we do was to pay a courtesy call to SLAJ. We have not done that yet for the IMC, but we are on it because they also have a lot of engagement. But for SLAJ, we have worked with them, and then they also have agreed to work with us tirelessly.
Because you are an affiliate body.
It's an affiliate body, but the relationship is very strong. That I can say. We are very strong working together. Even at now, we are working for us to have the bagging certificate, which we are going to have at the end of this month, early next month. We are going to have it so we can have the capacity to advocate for the welfare of reporters.
Okay, so thank you very much. She is Zainab Sunkai Koma, the Vice President of the Sierra Leone Reporters Union.
And a reporter here at the Slbc.
And a reporter here. She is a colleague at the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. She's talking about the celebration, the 20th anniversary celebration of the Sierra Leone Reporters Union.
And Swasa will be celebrating. It's 50.
Swasa will be celebrating.
It's 50.
50. And you know, Francis, Sierra Leone Reporters Union is a very critical organization.
Because they have members from Swasa, WIMSA.
For me, I made an observation. I said, after SLAJ, you talk about Sierra Leone Reporters Union. Because it has members across.
Unfortunately, it has not been the case.
I hope this particular executive will make it much more influential within the media landscape.
All right, thank you very much, Sunkai. Quickly, we go to you, Madam Kaba. Now, this is September and it's Sickle Cell Awareness Month. What are you doing?
Well, this month we have highlighted mass media sensitization. We are making newspaper publications. At least 4 newspapers agreed to help us out. And we are through Slbc. We are also meeting our people in the communities for us to send our messages across. But then on Saturday the 21st, we have a big meeting at the Faculty of Nursing, wherein we want to bring our community and our partners together for what we call a family meeting. And then on the 27th, which is a Friday, we want to train health workers. We want to train health workers because the major problem that we are having is problem with the referral point. When they come to us and we send them to the referral hospitals, we thank God the Ministry of Health through these hospitals, the teaching hospitals from the Ministry of Health, they are helping us for specialized care. So what we normally do at the moment, we have 2 centers. 2, we call them drop-in centers at 88 Kisi Road and 25 Thomas Street. So they come in there, and when they have minor ailments or minor crisis, we help them with maintenance treatment. But when they come with severe crisis, we refer them. Those below 10 years, we refer them to Oladirin Children's Hospital. And those above 10 years, we refer them to Connaught Hospital. For the pregnant women, we now send them to Kenema Road and also PCMH, according to whatever.
So quickly, what's the prevalence in Sierra Leone?
In Sierra Leone, for now, we have 22%, which is something that has been for over 20 years. So we need to review.
So when will you conduct such a review? Because
we are happy that this year
happened 20 years ago.
20 years ago. We are happy now that this year the Ministry of Health has started showing interest in sickle cell disease in this country, and they've even formed a task force. So we have already raised this issue, and I'm sure Ministry is going to look out for funding for us to actually review this prevalence rate, which is very important.
Thank you very much, Madam Kaba. And quickly,
Mr. Oka.
Yes, so you must have people who might be looking up to you, because for you to come out to tell your story is one good thing that people will want to hear from you always. Now we have to go, but your message to people who think all is lost because they have been diagnosed with sickle cell.
With a quick summary, let me just say this to warriors, because first, sickle cell is not a death sentence, and the fact that you have been born with sickle cell disease, that doesn't mean you are that kind of a loafer or you shouldn't do anything changeable with your life. It's just about the mindset, how best you can capacitate yourself, and you can't do it alone. You need the support of family. You need the support of loved one. So again, the information to family and closer people to individual that a sickle cell warrior is, let's just stop with the discriminatory aspect, because I faced it. It was only through the help of God and the support for my family, for medication, that I was able to overcome it. Because some have weaker mindsets, they can't go through it. Because if you are being constantly discriminated in school, in public places, in university or so, you can't withstand those kind of segregating aspects. And the second thing is for every sickle cell warrior to understand and know about their disease, because that will help you a lot. That will help you to know the medication specification that you should take, because sickle cell disease is kind of dynamic.
Okay.
In the sense that you can't take every medication. If some medication works for you, it can't work for me.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you very much. He is Johnny Walker, and he is a sickle cell patient. And many thanks to our guest for making this program a reality. To you, Madam Emilia Kaba, Coordinator of Sickle Cell Society, Sierra Leone, and also to our Vice President of Sierra Leone Reporters Union, Zainab Sunkai Koma.
and also earlier we had Anthony, and Alfonso Manley talking about the reopening of the portal for those pupils who were left out in the 2024 government tour. So they are now giving them opportunity
From the 17th today to the 19th.
today to the 19th. That
make
tomorrow,
sure
Thursday.
you monitor
So
this